choose to walk in the spirit is difficult, dealing with all of the ignorance. But in the Bible, and still talking about the Bible, what is the benefit? Everything about you counterfeit, there ain't no rebuttal you can counter with. On the internet, you the master teacher, in real life, you powerless. Keep it real with you, I don't have time for this, I ride for this, my forefathers died for this. They cry for this opportunity, presently I possess, and right now you are the opposite. If you walk in love, you fulfill the law, don't get involved, you ain't giving it all. If you ever think it's cool to threaten another man's family, then you already lost. Chemtrails got aluminum, heavy metal saturate the atmosphere. Manhattan Project, time travel, Mandela effect, what happened here? GMO food processing to the whole world become obsolete. A black man who believes in Jesus, got my own team taking shots at me. You trespassing on property that you don't fully understand properly. All the back and forth, that's not for me, that's for ROC and the War Machine. If we ride together, then we ride together. If we can't do it, I'd rather leave. I still stand on the word of God till the day I die and no longer breathe. We trapped inside the diaspora, nightmares of the massacre. Cold sweat, I'm below deck in the middle passage, just a passenger. Revolutionary hardcore, liberation, that's a hard job. You ain't ready, you a oddball, keep your mouth closed like lockjaw. I learned trying to bring people together on the same page, make them separate. All the talk about reconciliation, when the time come, you hesitate. If Jesus was able to sit at the table with a bunch of sinners, you very fake. Your steps ordered by the Lord, and how it was yesterday, a big mistake. We the city sitting on the hill, guess it all depends on how you live. Guess it all depends on how you feel, and we both know that ain't God's will. I stood on what I felt was right, I don't never question if God's real. Trapped inside this matrix, I'm about to pop the red and the blue pill.
Bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one toward another. Mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, said the Lord. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:14-21.
You're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not Manny. I am Peyton Manning level, I'm on GOAT status. I think I'm the baddest mother lover ever walk on this planet. Damn it, you could never see me, you could never beat me, you could never be me, disrespect me, and I'm eating all of your pizza. I know I'm not right, I know I'm not white, I know I'm gon' call the popo on you if you hit me. I don't fight, I'm a rapper, I don't write. Rio, you got all that hype, that's the stuff that I don't like. Why you laughing at my height? I wish I could slap your face. You just think you're so amazing, you just think that you're the greatest. Why you bucking Tom Brady? I am Peyton Manning, end of conversation. You just hating, I am Peyton Manning, say it. I am Peyton Manning, say it. No, Dibble God plan, that's a Drake line. Beat the midget up, that's a hate crime. 8 towns on 3 game time. Got the trunk knocking from the baseline. I'm all about the money, baby, crocker cake time. Chopsticks on deck, no Shanghai. 4-5, you come to my waistline. Keep the 4-5 tucked by my waistline. You soft in the middle like fruit pie. I know it hard for you to walk a straight line. You wouldn't throw trays in the food fight. That what I heard through the grapevine. I know you don't mind wasting your time. I would just prefer you didn't waste mine. You gon' get what coming to you in due time. Little pussycat running from the K9. You're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny, hating Manny, you're not hating Manny. You're not hating Manny, hating Manny.
You ain't nowhere in my category, mandatory for me to tell you that you were very boring. And the moral of the story, I wish I could just ignore you, but I gotta burn your body, put you in the crematorium. And I'm the only audio inside the auditorium. And when I'm finished with you, you will not have no memorial. You wanna be Luigi, but you're not ready for Mario. And no scenario, running circles around your cardio. And that's a body blow, it's not a secret. Everybody know that you ain't coming close. I leave you comatose, and you become a ghost. I overdose, I gotta overload. That's when the windows of heaven open up for me with the overflow. And I can feel the power moving within every last chromosome. Battle right around the corner, you already know it's on. Understand me, you're not hating Manny, you're not hating Manny. Woo!
Peace, peace, peace. What it is, it's your brother Tyvon Swain now, aka the Orthodox Moor, aka the Seven Pillar Saracen. Coming at you on this Friday evening. I hope y'all had a good week, man. It was an interesting week for me. Been a lot of back and forth, a lot of interesting conversations and whatnot. A lot of topics to talk about. Let me play this right quick. But yeah, I wanted to talk about a couple of topics in particular tonight. I wanted to talk about the Lemba migrations because we recently had Brother Kohen Amadishe from the Lemba tribe on for a good interview. I linked that interview down in the description. I also linked the interview with him and Sister E. I also put his Facebook and also his monetary information so you can donate to his ministry also in the description. And just so I can refresh everybody on that, there's his information in terms of his Facebook and website. And then here is his information in terms of where you can send him direct donations or whatnot. So you can quickly copy that down. You can pause this up and copy down when you need to, etc. But with that, family, I wanted to talk about a couple of things concerning that interview and also some conversations I just had being on the Dagger Squad panel with Garfield and Ngozi, etc. whatnot. Because there's been a lot, like I said, a lot of interesting conversation concerning the Lemba, their migration, people claiming Lemba DNA, people talking about GEDmatch and are they using the right programs and formulas and are they using the right projects in GEDmatch, etc. whatnot. So yeah, just to kick it all off, I wanted to get off into a small presentation, getting into what the Kohen had talked about in his interview with us, talking about his migration and whatnot. And during our talk and whatnot, our interview and whatnot, he had to go look for a few things at one point. And so when he did so, I actually brought up a couple of slides to go check out or whatnot. And I want to actually go through that presentation so we can give some historical background to some of the things that the Kohen was saying, because it was very interesting. And I thought it was interesting because, like I said, it matched up with some things I've been reading in a book that recently came out by Sister Dana Marnichi Reynolds. If you don't know her, she is a very, very powerful scholar. She's an ethno historian, a biographer, etc. whatnot. And she has works in the Golden Age of the Moors and whatnot, etc. with Ivan Van Sertima, where she does an ethno history of the Moors there, which is fantastic. Which eventually I'll talk about and how it ties into this conversation with the Kohen. But the sister also came out with the book. Let me see if I got a picture of it in this StreamYard or not. Let me double check, family. Let me double check for you real quick. Where do I have that picture? Just give me 1 second, family. Excuse me. I'm trying to find a picture I have. I might not have uploaded it. My fault. But getting back to it. There it is. So she wrote an ethno history of the Moors and the Golden Age of the Moors, but she just recently came out with this book here, The African and Arabian Origins of the Hebrew Bible. by Sister Dana Reynolds Marnici. And what's interesting about that is she says a lot of things that, again, like I say, confirm what the Cohen has said when the Cohen came on the program and whatnot. He said that they migrated from Israel to Yemen, and then from Yemen to Mozambique, and then from Mozambique to Zimbabwe. And so real quick, I just wanted to give some historical credence to what the brother was talking about. So I'm going to share my screen right quick. There we go. Yes, y'all can see the screen. That's what's up. Let me make this a bit bigger. And we got the Lemba, the people of the dub, from Babylon to Yemen. Again, when you hear him talk, in his interview with me and his interview with Sister E or whatnot, he gives, and also with other videos he has on the internet and whatnot, he gives some breakdown scripturally for what he's talking about and whatnot. So first off, this is Ezra 10:3. Now, therefore, let us make a covenant with our God to put away all the wives. And this is when the Israelites were coming out of Babylon and whatnot, right? He talked about the fact that their migration began from this point, and that they were ousted because they were people who had married foreign wives, foreign women and whatnot, right? And so the children and the wives are put away. So he gives some scriptural background for that. So Ezra 10:3. Now therefore let us make a covenant with our God to put away all the wives and such as are born of them, according to the counsel of my Lord, and of those that tremble at the commandment of our Lord, and let it be done according to the law. And then Ezra 10:5 explains, then arose Ezra and made the chief priests, the Levites, and all Israel to swear that they should do according to this word, and they swear. So the Kohen talked about a large population of the Levites being sent away and whatnot, and that some of them were fully grown and even older than he was, and maybe in their 70s because they've been in captivity for many decades, etc. and whatnot. So he's saying that the migration begins with them being cast out because of the Levites marrying foreign women, etc. and whatnot. And so the children of those foreign women and the foreign women themselves were cast away. We're going further. And these had taken strange wives, and some of them had wives by whom they had children, etc. and whatnot. Like I was just saying, Ezra 10:44. But I wanted to back this up again with some of what I've been reading in this new book from Sister Dana Marnici, again, The African and Arabian Origins of the Hebrew Bible. This is from page 172 of that book, where the sister talks about a clan of Levites in Yemen. So real quick, the 9th century. Let me fix this real quick. Pardon the typo, but the 9th century Persian Yemenite Wahab ibn Munabi was Jewish, spoke of the lineage of Banu el-Harith, the Banu el-Harith tribe, from whom came several of the more recent Zakhran tribes of Asir. Wahab wrote of the priestly line of Eleazar. He is Elias bin Yasin bin Finhas bin Al-Izar bin Harun bin Imran. Allah sent him to the children of Israel after his Calor, Ezekiel, peace be upon him. And so, just so you understand, this would be Phineas or Finhas. This is the Arabic for that. Al-Itzar, this would be the Arabic for Eleazar. So this is Finhas, the son of Eleazar, and this is Harun. This is how you say Aaron or Aaron in Arabic. So this is Phineas, the son of, Phineas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron. Again, this is also saying the son of Imran, which is this is the Arabic way of saying Amram, the father of Aaron and Moses, etc. So again, they're saying that a Persian Yemenite Jewish person from the 9th century recorded a group of people who claimed that their descendancy was from this priestly line of Eleazar. And again, going further on page 174 and 175 of this book, The African and Arabian Origins of the Hebrew Bible by Dana Marnichi. It says these Banu el Harith, also bin Ka'ab or Ba'al Harith, according to Al-Hamdani's description of Arabia, were a branch of the Eleazar or Al-Itzar, which belonged to Azd, and this lineage is in fact again, same thing. I'll say this in English so you understand it. So Eleazar, son of Aaron, son of Imran. So Al-Itzar bin Harun bin Imran. The same concept. So you have a people claiming to have a Levitical lineage in Yemen. The tribe of Banu el-Harith or Ba'al Harith mentioned in modern maps are located in the vicinity of the Shaba region of Hadramaut in Yemen, not far from a district called Jardan, where the tribes of Mansur or Manasseh and Nimrah are found. Again, these are people you can find these are names you can find in the Bible, etc. But this area of the Hadramaut, this is where Sinna is located, where Cohen Hamandishi said that they went to and they helped set up a city. So going further into that, well, let me bring this up as well. That Al-Hamdani, the person that I just read, right, his source, or that source that I just read from Hamdani, he's a 10th century Yemenite Muslim from Banu Hamdan, from the Banu Hamdan tribe, a well-known Sabian clan that dates back in Yemen to the first millennium BCE. Al-Hamdani was a geographer, a chemist, a poet, a grammarian, a historian, and an astronomer. He wasn't just a nobody writing this. And he's from the area, and he's from the area for a long time. His people have been there for a long time. But I'm just going further real quick. Let me check, see if there's any questions in the chat. Fast. Okay. You know, let me make this bigger. No, it's okay like that. Again, so Cohen Hamadishe was talking about Senna in Yemen, right? About this city that was built in Yemen. And it needs to be understood it's distinct from Sana'a, that's in Western Yemen, and Sana'a, that's in Oman. Okay. Senna is in Eastern Yemen. Like I said, in the Hadramaut. Senna is an abandoned and ancient town in Yemen located in the remote eastern Hadramaut Valley. Senna was a thriving Jewish city at the time of the Babylonian Empire around 500 BCE and is believed to have been dominated by Israelites who fled Jerusalem during the Babylonian invasion. They crossed the Jordan into Yemen, believing they were safe in the valley of the east, crossing the Masala River. This is from a book of Warriors, Lovers, and Prophets, Unusual Stories from South Africa's Past by Max Dupree, page 172. So just so you get an understanding, so that the Hadramaut area is where the Hadramaut region is where Senna is found. It is found close to this, to where the Aran region is found in the Hadramaut region. There is a Sana'a in the western part there you see in the Azai region on the western part, but that is not it. We're talking about Senna in the east. So in the Hadramaut, this is also from an article, The Real Black Genesis, Demythologizing the First Peoples of the Book by Dana Reynolds Marnichi. She quite often talks about how the Arab sources talking about how the Hadramaut was the darkest part of Arabia in terms of skin tone. And so here, these are modern pictures of dancers from the Hadramaut and from women and a woman thereof from northern Yemen, from northern Yemen. And so you can see how dark they are to this day. So on multiple levels, you can see to where, if this is like where the area of Sheba is at, right? And people that are this darker one, you can see to where the Lemba would have felt safe there. One, it's a Jewish kingdom. Two, they get to blend in. We're going further. Again, you can see on the map here where you have Sana'a on the northwestern part of Yemen. But if you go to the east, you can see where it says Sena, S-E-N-A. This is the area where Cohen Hamadisha was talking about. And again, you can see where he talks about they get in a boat and sail to Mozambique. We're going further. Again, that's in the upper right-hand part of the picture there, Senna. This is Senna. These are the ruins of Senna. And what's interesting about this is when I first saw this, I was like, wow, that reminds me of a lot of stuff I've seen in Mali and Timbuktu, etc. whatnot. Very interesting. I'll be touching on that on Monday. But yeah, this is Senna. These are the ruins of Senna, etc. And this was a map that the Cohen talked about, to where he said he was talking about how Lemba was near the land of Moab, etc., and that they were surrounded by the Moabites, etc. whatnot. I thought that was extremely interesting. But yeah, there was something that came out in the interview that I thought was also interesting, in the sense to where in the interview he had with me and the interview he had with Sister E, he also talked about he believed that there were Lemba that ended up in the transatlantic slave trade, that they went from East Africa and ended up into the transatlantic slave trade some way, shape, or form. And what's interesting about that is I recently just did a video on my channel, MX and Ministries. Go check that one out. You can go check out my other channel, The Orthodox More, as well. And on the channel MX and Ministries, I did another presentation to where I showed I actually showed an East African slave trade, or excuse me, East Africans being taken to the West. A lot of people don't know about this. And it's something that I recently came across. As a matter of fact, having done some research on the Lemba and having talked with Cohen, because he sparked me to actually do some research on this. So when I delved into it, I found a couple of things. But before I play that, before I get into that, I want to play something for y'all real quick. I want to play something that I just encountered dealing with the Dagger Squad. Hold on right quick. So I was on the Dagger Squad earlier on the panel and talking about the Lemba and then talking about DNA, etc., whatnot. So I'm going to play a couple of their clips right quick, and then I'm going to give this small little presentation. So here we go.
That's fair. The Orthodox More, you up? What you got to say, brother?
Yeah, real quick. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions on your position on Israelites in West Africa and then the Lemba overall.
All right, hold on. We're going to get to that. Hold on a second. Me and Ngozi, we have a section for you. Right now, we need.
I got a quick question for Ngozi, right quick, so I can understand what you're saying.
All right, go ahead.
So, just so I understand, for the people who are Israelite in America claiming that they're connected to the Lemba, you're saying that's not correct in the sense that when their DNA connected to their Bantu to the Lemba Bantu DNA, not the Semitic DNA within the Lemba, correct?
Yes, partially right. Partially right. Correct.
There's more to it than that. Yes.
Okay.
You could tell that you actually understand. I respect that question. I respect that. But we're gonna talk about. He said it earlier. But Ngozi, I gotta slow you down on the video, man. I gotta do a
for real.
Yeah, because you already said it. You already answered all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, hold on. So I got that question in, and then I got to get these questions in as well. So so check out this answer by Garfield right quick, and Ngozi.
Orthodox More, you had a question that you wanted to ask, and we skipped over you. So go ahead and
then the two quick clarification questions. So one, Brother Ngozi, what is your position on the Jed Match projects that tell the people that say they connect to the Lemba that those particular projects also match them up to Yemenite, Ethiopian, and Moroccan Jews. And the second question to Garfield, was it your position earlier that no East Africans were taken into the transatlantic slave trade into the West?
Yeah, my position is that, I mean, there were people taken from North, but not from the East. There's some few people taken from the North, not necessarily from the East Africa. East Africa people were taken in the, during the time when the Muslims were in charge. They did take them to several different places. You know, that's why when people talk about the 400 years, you got to be careful, because there's the people from the East that were taken on ships. So if they want to play that game, and they've been in the land for over 400 years as slaves. So these are things that's going on outside of our world that's happening on that side of the continent. All right. But as far as taken to America, I'm not aware of that. Maybe that's something that I missed in school, but I don't know about that. Ngozi, the next question.
I was going to say again, even those people that you talk about that were stripped from East Africa that the Arabians took, or some of them that possibly came through the Portuguese and traded somewhere in Iberian Peninsula with the British or whatever, they were primarily Bantu speakers. You're not going to find a Habesha slave over here. You're not going to find a Somali slave over here. You're not going to find a Oromo slave over here. You're not going to find a melodic slave over here. You find primarily Bantu speakers that was being taken in those zones. For us, and that came to America, we are really Mendi, Fulani, Yoruba, Alatic Congo speakers, Volta Congo speakers, those type of people. You're not going to find, you might find, like you say, the East Africans, but what type of East Africans are they taking? They're not taking Somalis. They're not taking Oromos. Somalis was embedded with Islam, and they still treat Somali Bantus bad and call them Jegara. That's the term that they use, Jegara. Look it up, or if you're around Somalis, you'll understand. Even with, like my mother being Fulani, and I'm gonna say this, Fulanis are flunkies. They were the ones that caused a lot of jihad in the Sahel. So what I'm saying is that you gotta look at the mindset of what was going on with people in Africa at that time. So even if you're talking about East Africans that was taken, that's not talking about Habesha, Oromo, or Somali. You're talking about Bantu speakers that was taken. Bantu speakers. Even the ones that went into Zanzibar, who Al-Jahiz was a descent of, in Arabia, that went over there in Baghdad or whatever. Those were people that was Bantu speakers. Those were Bantu speakers, the Zaj.
So what was your position on the JEDmatch projects?
Okay, now with JEDmatch, you got to be careful with JEDmatch. You got to be careful, because what JEDmatch do is you take a DNA test through 23andMe Ancestry and take your raw data and upload it. And it shows you the population that you have close affinities to. What part of the DNA that's been abstracted or taken away through the raw data when it reads your overall autosomal DNA composition? What connects you to Yemen and certain parts of Ethiopia is talking about the African part. It's not talking about the Middle Eastern part. The brother talked about earlier when brother Garfield was reading from the abstract, you find the sub-Saharan African component over there in the Middle East. We talked about that. Where did it come from? A lot of it comes from the slave trade that was when they were importing sub-Saharan African women. And you also have an early L3 branch that went over there. And even with the Ethiopian Jews, the Falasha Jews aren't even really, when they looked at their genetics, they're not even really Semitic. They're not really Eurasian. They're not as much Eurasian as the Habeshan. You get what I'm saying when you look at their genetics? So the Falasha Jews, when you look at that mitochondrial DNA, you find a lot of the mitochondrial DNA in East Africa that you find in West Africa. So the part of the DNA that's similar to Yemenis people is talking about the African component. It's not talking about the Middle Eastern component. Now, and if you use Ethio-helix on JEDmatch, it abstracts the African component. Now, when you go into the European part of JEDmatch, they go back into your Neolithic components through Europe, which links you to the Middle East. So like your British blood, let's say you're 23% British. What makes up a British person? Europeans are phases of three group populations that came together to see the Europeans that we see today. Mesolithic Europeans, Neolithic Europeans that came out of Anatolia, and the Yemenis that came from the Russian steppes who brought the Indo-European language. If you go further into your British DNA, you're going to find ties to the Anatolian area or the near Caucasus. You're also going to find ties with ancient Mesolithic Europeans. So JEDmatch goes further back in time into your DNA as it takes your raw data. It goes further back in time to read the affinities that you have with certain people that exist in ancient times. So you got to be careful and learn how to, understand how to read geomatch and what's going on.
It goes back to the Lemba real fast. Watch this. You know, we talked about this many moons ago, how males from Middle Eastern population migrated in Africa, took themselves African wives. So right there, the Lemba discount y'all with the original Hebrew thing again.
Yep.
It's again, look at the genetic studies. They show you that these males, right, came from the Middle Eastern population. Came from the Middle Eastern population. This is not confusing. This is clear. And now the genetic studies, you know what I'm saying? They even may dispute that. But anyway, it still does not support that the sub-Saharan Africans, right, are the original nomadic people that you find in the Middle East. Simple, bro. Like, man, y'all, boy, they trying to get sophisticated,
They try. That's why they gotta play. You gotta be careful with E1B. They like to play with E1B, and they don't even understand what's going on. You look, 36% of Greek men is a branch of E1B, E1B1B, and they are a branch of EM78, which is EV113 that developed in the Balkans. Are they us? No. You can look it up. So just because you see E1B anything doesn't mean it's you. It doesn't mean it's you.
I'm gonna blame you, Ngozi. I'm gonna blame you, bro. I'm gonna blame you.
I want to hear.
Been given the rest of the class. You know, I didn't get the rest of the class show.
Dread, hold on, Dread. I'm gonna call you. I got
Thunder. They gotta take the class, yo. We ain't giving the class, yo. Thought they had it.
Oh man, Thunder, what's up?
Garfield, they're literally trying to fight conversations we had for the last 10 years, bro. That's what's funny, Garfield. You know how long Hey, hold on. Everybody take a deep breath, right? Is this your deep turn right now, yo? That is so crazy. Like, this is fun. We got all the answers to the test.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? I gotta go to what we used to do the shows on again?
Blog Talk, yo, they all there, bro.
Yeah, all our stuff there.
Blog Talk.
Man, Ngozi used to go at every Friday. I don't know what day. Listen, man.
Friday and Thursday.
Listen, we used to get so bored, we used to start battling each other over the king. Remember that?
Yeah. We used to have fun, yo. Real talk. Yes, sir.
But you know the key though with the whole Deadman stuff is that you got this dude named Dante Fortson, and you got a couple of people, Sister E, and you know, they all on brother Marine's channel. And what happened is they don't understand DNA to the point where, because DNA goes back, if they say they're part of the E family, you saying you're going back like 60 to 80,000 years. They don't understand that part. This ain't about no Israelite at that point. This is about human family. And I think this is what I told the dude that came on this morning. That's, yo, bro, take away your religion and take away your bias, and let's have a straight up conversation on the evidence. He couldn't do it. He couldn't hold it in. He couldn't. You know, but let me get this question from Thunder. I know Thunder got a question. Go ahead, Thunder.
Thunder, funny guy, boy.
So to me, that was a really interesting back and forth in the sense to where, so you have Ngozi and you got, I believe Ngozi and agreed with Garfield. Although I might be incorrect, but Garfield was basically saying he doesn't believe anybody from East Africa came into the transatlantic slave trade and whatnot. So on one level, trying to link yourself to that, to the Lemba through that is fallacious or whatnot. On another hand, they were talking about the DNA stuff, right? And so for the jet match concept and controversy that's been going back and forth, there was a sister named Salam and I think G-Con and other people who were starting conversations about how that Israelites were using the wrong project in the jet match to be able to link themselves to the Lemba concept, putting themselves through the world projects versus the Ethiopia Helix projects or whatnot. And so the pushback on that was that when we put our DNA, or Israelites put their DNA into the Ethiohelix concepts, that the Lemba DNA or the Lemba is not in that project, so it's not in the list that could potentially come up or whatnot. And so I asked a question about the world DNA projects, in the sense that we're like, okay, so when Ngozi was saying that with the Jed match, etc., bottom line was that the DNA markers that are matching up with the African aspects of the DNA. So it's matching up to the Bantu DNA that the Lemba have, and not to any Semitic DNA that the Lemba have. And so my return fire question to him was, okay, so what is your perspective and what's your position on those same world projects that show that they link up to the Lemba, also showing that they link to Yemenite, Ethiopian, and Moroccan Jewish peoples? And so what he was saying is that, again, for all of those groups, from the Yemenite to the Ethiopian to the Moroccan, that they're connecting to the African DNA and not the Semitic DNA. So Ngozi is basically saying that there's no possible way, period, that genetically there's any Semitic ties to it or whatnot. It's all African DNA, etc. whatnot. So with that, I want to address something that the second question that I asked to Garfield, which was his position that there was no East Africans taken in the transatlantic slave trade and whatnot. And so with that, I want to share with some research I've recently done and whatnot that I found to be interesting. Again, keeping in mind that Cohen Hamadishe said that his people came from Israel and went from Babylon to Israel to Yemen to Mozambique to Zimbabwe. Again, from Babylon to Israel to Yemen to Mozambique to Zimbabwe. So let me just share my screen one more again. And do it like this. Again, the Lemba and the transatlantic slave trade. East African slaves taken to the West. Were the Lemba enslaved in the Americas? Cohen Hamadishe, Lemba tribesman from the Buba clan, says that he believes that there were Lemba on slave ships to the Americas. Some claiming an Israelite identity in America are also claiming a genetic tie to the Lemba. Is this even possible or plausible? East Africa was a late participant in the transatlantic slave trade. In the 1770s, the French began to regularly trade in slaves in the French islands of Mauritius and Reunion Island, islands east of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. They got the slaves from those points on the east coast of the African coast. So they got them from the east coast of Africa and took them to these islands that were farther east to Madagascar. I'll show a picture of that in a little bit. And these slaves were taken in small numbers for a century prior to this, right? So from a century prior to 1770, right? Or the 1770s. But they were taken in small number. But when planters in Saint-Domingue, a French colony on what is now Haiti, demanded more labor, this slave trade, again, from East Africa became more regular and systematic. I have the link for this article that I'm getting this information from down below, by the way. So again, East Africa was a late participant in the transatlantic slave trade. And it started past the 1770s. So I go into the next slide. It took slaves from Mozambique ports 120 days to reach Saint-Domingue, i.e. Haiti. While 30% of the slaves died on this long middle passage, it still soon became a profitable route for the slave traders to take. Soon a triangular slave trade developed between the western port cities of France in Bordeaux and Nantes, Saint-Domingue, again Haiti, and East Africa. The slaves were exchanged for sugar, coffee, and indigo. During the 1780s, the vessels used to transport these slaves grew to be able to carry up to 1,000 slaves on each vessel. Between 1789 and 1790, the triangular transatlantic East African slave trade reached its peak when 46 ships carrying more than 16,000 slaves circumnavigated the Cape. Almost all of these ships were bound for the sugar and coffee plantations of northern Saint-Domingue. Again, This is Haiti. So this is a concept of the the triangular slave trade that I'm talking about from East Africa, France, and Haiti. So we have on the left, you can see where Saint Domingue and Haiti is, and it's showing you where the line of France is, right? So we go to France on the top right, and you can see where the ports of Bordeaux and Nantes are, where I just read from. And on the bottom right, you can see where Mozambique is. Then you go to the east of that, to the right, you see Madagascar. From the right of that, you see Mauritius. That's one of the islands I was talking about that they were sailing them from. So they would take them from Mozambique. This is a trip. And sometimes they would take them to Mauritius, and then they would sail them around the Cape. And then they would sail them around the Cape. And this is the French doing this. This is a French trade. So we were all taught about a triangular slave trade in a whole nother spot, right? This is a French triangular slave trade going to East Africa and the Caribbean that we were never taught about in schools. But going further, many of the slaves that were taken from the coast of Mozambique had been seized or sold from deep within the interior of East Africa. It took, the Cohen Hamadishe said that the Lemba came from Yemen and went to Mozambique. And so Mozambique is the area where these slaves are being taken from, and also farther into the interior. Farther in the interior of Mozambique is Zimbabwe. Hold on, let me see if you can see it off the last picture. I'm not sure. Yeah, you can see it right there. Mozambique, then Zimbabwe. That's the interior from Mozambique. So Cohen Hamadishe also said whenever they traveled somewhere, people didn't all like they would leave some people behind and they would lose contact and whatnot. So you had people in Yemen, you had people in Zimbabwe that were all Lemba populations. But going further, it took 35 days to make it from Mozambique to Cape Town in South Africa. Again, they're taking a roundabout way of getting there, right? Slaves thought not strong enough to make the journey to Saint Domingue were sold in Cape Town. In some cases, all the slaves were sold at the Cape. This is where it gets even more interesting, right? Here's where we have artifacts that back this up, right? In the 1980s, the remains of the Portuguese slave ship, the São José, were found off the coast of Cape Town. Discoveries through South African and Portuguese archives confirmed that the São José had set sail from Lisbon, Portugal in April of 1794 and had sunk off the coast of Cape Town in December of 1794 with 212 of the believed 400 or 500 slaves aboard as cargo having died in this event. The ship was heading from Portuguese Mozambique to colonial Brazil. Again, I have the articles talking about this link down below, family. 2 years after the São José sank off the coast of Cape Town, merchants at Mozambique Island opened up a new slave trade with the Americas, sending slaves to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and the Spanish Viceroyalty of Rio de la Plata, which consisted of lands in modern-day Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So this is where the Portuguese did, right? So the Portuguese took them from Mozambique and took them to Brazil, and then took them to Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina. All that blue was one land called Rio de la Plata. That was Spanish land, the Spanish Viceroyalty. So far we have the French and we have the Portuguese taking slaves from Mozambique and the interior of from thereof to Haiti, to Brazil, and to all of those countries in South America, in what was then Rio de la Plata, in Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina, in Chile, I believe is what it said. Again, now this is from a Smithsonian article. Again, the history of the São José slave ship and the site thereof. So the picture on the right is the actual site that this is a picture from this article where they were diving to go check out this site. The São José was one of the earliest voyages of the slave trade between Mozambique and Brazil, a massive trade in human beings which continued well into the 19th century. More than 400,000 East Africans are estimated to have made the journey between 1800 and 1865. This is just between the Portuguese taking slaves from Mozambique to Brazil. Just that. This doesn't even include the French taking slaves. This number 400,000 doesn't even include the French number. Again, were East Africans taken to the West? East African slaves taken from Mozambique coast and the interior of Africa would have been present during the slave insurrection of the Haitian Revolution, which took place from 1791 to 1804 in the French colony of Saint-Domingue. One more time. East African slaves taken from the Mozambique coasts and the interior of Africa would have been present during the slave insurrection of the Haitian Revolution, which took place from 1791 to 1804 in the French colony of Saint-Domingue. Planters from Saint-Domingue seeking refuge from the revolution migrated to the territory of Orleans. This is the modern day Louisiana family with their African slaves. The largest slave rebellion in U.S. history took place in the territory of Orleans in 1811 after this migration happened. So you had the slaves that were kicking up so cold in Haiti that they ended up getting their own land, right? And during this revolt, you had the planters who were using them as slaves, trying to flee the revolt and go to modern day Louisiana, but they took their slaves with them. And after having migrated to Louisiana, again, the biggest slave revolt in American history takes place there. Now, I'm not saying it's connected to the Lemba. I'm just saying it's interesting how there is a connection with these particular revolutions and these particular slaves, and how many of them come from East Africa, etc. How many of them come from East Africa? What's also interesting is when you actually check out the DNA of people from Haiti and whatnot, they have a large percentage of DNA that comes from Southeastern Africa. So a lot of my brothers and sisters here in America, they're testing it at high percentages, like 10 to 15%, etc., with the Southeastern Bantu DNA genetics and whatnot, right? And again, when they take these DNA tests, Lemba and other people in East Africa are not in the charts, are not in the system for them to come up for their DNA to show Lemba like on like the 23andMe's and the ancestry DNAs, etc., whatnot, right? However, when they plug him into GEDmatch, the GEDmatch is like, no, you actually rock with the Lemba, you know what I'm saying? So again, what's interesting about that is they have DNA that's only 10 to 15% Southeastern African. In Haiti, go check out the DNA test online, fam. You got people from Haiti pulling up over half of their DNA coming from Southeastern Africa, or up to half, something like that, like 40 to 60%, something of that range, right? Either or, it's nuts. It's of a high level, which makes, so here's this migration makes sense, right? It's very plausible and possible that you have a population coming in from East Africa into Haiti, right? So they're going to have a large percentage of East African DNA currently still. If that population was taken to the Americas, like Louisiana, et cetera, whatnot, right? Mississippi, et cetera, all them type of places, right? Then it stands to reason over time that they're going to have less DNA or less of the East African DNA that the people of Haiti do, right? But it stands to reason that they're still going to have a decent percentage of East African DNA. So again, from what I understand, they're not saying that the people who are claiming Lemba genetics, they're not saying that everybody's Lemba, but they're saying that there are people, there's a pocket of people who are testing to have genetic ties to the Lemba. And it seems as though there is a plausible migration and enslavement that would happen going from East Africa to the Americas, not having to go through Central Africa into West Africa, but completely bypassing all of that and going straight to the Caribbean and then further into the Gulf of Mexico, etc. And not only that, being taken to Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Uruguay, and Paraguay, to the tune of over 400,000 in that area. So again, were Lemba enslaved in the Americas? I honestly don't know. Further genetic testing would need to be done to conclusively answer that question. But is this even possible or plausible? 100% yes, it is very much so. given that the slave trade done by the French and others from Mozambique to the Americas had a large population of people coming over this way. And not only that, they went to places in the Caribbean. So again, it also needs to be understood at one point when the slave trade was cut off in the West, that they just traded slaves from within the West. So even from Brazil and the Spanish viceroyalty and whatnot, you still could have had slaves that ended up here. And that gets even trickier, right? So is it possible and plausible? 100%. And there's a bunch of viable routes that need to be investigated, and falsified or proven. Let me see if I got anything more on this. No. But yeah, family. Big up to my man, Kimo Ben Israel in the chat. Shalom, fam. But not too many people watching. I will drop the link in the chat to see if anybody wants to jump on. If nobody wants to jump on, I will jump off because I know there's a bunch of other live streams going on right now. It's busy as Friday. People doing their thing. People got a lot to talk about. People talking about these pews. People talking about urban apologists. People talking about this DNA. People talking about all kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I'll give this a quick second. If I don't see anyone jump on, I'm just going to X this off and say peace to the family. So yeah, I don't see anybody jumping on.
Oh, this is me jumping on for real. Hold on. We got some interesting stuff popping off in the chat right now. I do need to drop the link for real because this was an old replay right quick, but I got my G in the chat. First of all, let me answer this question right quick to my good sister, Melanated Goddess. Orthodox Moor, are those ex-slaves from Haiti considered ADOS? For me, sis, like ADOS for me is the D is diaspora, right? Like, so like for me, it's not the American descendants, it's African diaspora of the slave trade. That's how I look at it, right? So there's some people in America who want to separate. Like, I don't do that, fam. If your people was on the slave ship, we're family. That's how I get down. But real quick, let me drop this link right quick because my G just said he can prove that Jacob was J, and I need to understand this. And this is for anybody who wants to jump up. Ooh, good. Shout out to Sister Shari and I. Please go check out her channel and subscribe. She has a lot of good information. She's putting out a good series on how to source information, how to put your information together. You know what I'm saying? How to be intelligent with the information, etc. But yeah, she says, I came across some info about Judeo-Arabic. Have you looked into it? Oh, yes. And as a matter of fact, sis, I will have some a video coming out real shortly about Judeo-Arabic and whatnot. As a matter of fact, in a previous video, I talked about the fact that I believe that it's potentially possible that that there is a West African form of Judeo-Arabic on the pews in Savannah, Georgia. But yeah, fantastic question. Yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about, sis. I can't separate the thing, fam. I can't do it. Like, like me and a homie from Haiti gonna take a DNA test, right? It's gonna particularly me, right? I have EM33 as my paternal haplogroup, right? Like, so I know my people came through the Caribbean at one point, or I am related to a lot of people that came through the Caribbean in the sense there's a lot of Fulani people that EM33 and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? They came through. If I'm going to look up EM33 in our diaspora, I'm going to find most of it in the Caribbean, right? I'm also going to find a pocket in the American South, right? That's because we're related. We left the same slave ports. Just because we came to different slave ports in America, just because we arrived at different slave ports in America, doesn't mean that we're not family. I don't understand how people want to break that up and want to be special out there, right? Like, nah. I couldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and to me, it makes more sense if we move as the diaspora wherever we go. You know what I'm saying? If we're embracing of the diaspora concept wherever we go, because we have the greatest numbers in that concept. As a matter of fact, I was supposed to have a debate recently about do poor people need anarchism to get to a commonwealth? And one of my main arguments in my counter premise is the concept of their strength in numbers, right? And that the concept of being a part of a commonwealth, etc., and having your strength in numbers is one of your best ways of defending yourself from enemies, foreign and domestic, etc. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it doesn't make any sense to move in this country. Let's say, okay, we're 45 million strong, etc. in this country. Let's say we had the whole rest of the diaspora, in just in the western part of the world, right? Let's say they all move to America tomorrow, right? So let's say we have 100 plus African descent people in this country, 100 plus million African descent people in this country tomorrow, right? Would it be better for us to all work as the diaspora together, or like, you know what, y'all are a separate group of immigrants. We need to completely separate and see y'all as the enemy and all that kind of stuff, because y'all are the immigrating Africans. No, it don't make no sense, man. It would make sense that we have our biggest strength in numbers. Like we would be able to do more as like 100 plus million than what we could at 45 plus million. That's just me. That's just me, man. Facts, Asiatic. Shout out to the homie Asiatic line. You know what I'm saying? No, track Fulani, Tuareg, Hausa in South Carolina. Yeah, like, so it's fun. Okay, like, so my DNA at the EM33, like, it also matches up with some Hausa. It matches up with Dogon, heavily with the Fulani. There's some Wolof that have it, and there's some Mandinka that have it. But yeah, and with the Tuareg too, what's interesting about that, a lot of people like, Tuareg, what you mean Tuareg? Nah, fam, look into that. There's people like Tina Turner who were Tuareg, who have Tuareg DNA. There's people like Morgan Freeman, right? And again, Morgan Freeman's people are from Georgia, okay? From Georgia, right? He has Tuareg DNA as well. He has Tuareg DNA. Yeah, hold on right quick. I'm EM132, but I don't consider myself Fulani, nor do I see any connections to them in my DNA test. My parents are from Grenada and St. Louis. Yeah, you might not be. You might not be, fam. Like I said, there's a so with the EM32, you got Fulani who carry it, you have Dogon that carry it, you have Mandinka that carry it, you have Wolof that carry it. You have there's a lot. There's the Fonte that carry it. You know what? Hold on. Let me do it like this. Let me get froggy with it right quick. Let me freestyle this thing. I was not planning on doing this part here. No, that's my grandfather's. Where's mine at? Here we go. Yeah, I was not planning on this, but yeah, let me do this right quick. Because yeah, you are very right, brother. Not everybody's Fulani. However, I have other reasons to believe so. Like, so in my Jed match, not only do I come up Fulani, but a lot of people in my family come up Fulani as well. But let me just do it like this here. So with the oh, I hate it when it doesn't give me a transition. Hold on, family. Live editing. Give me some kind of transition, fam. Let's go with the flip. Yeah, boy. So, yeah. So this is what 23andMe says about EM132. Your paternal line stems from a branch of haplogroup E called EM132, which is seen at low frequencies in the Bahamas on the islands of Abaco, Eleuthera, Exuma, Grand Bahama, and Long Island. This is likely a reflection of historical movements of African and Creole slaves before and after the abolition of slavery in 1807. Over 25% of slaves transported to the Bahamas during the slave trade were from West and Central Africa, which is consistent with the most common location of EM132. Now, real quick, if you get into it, like, its heaviest, densest population is in Mali, right? A lot of Mali DNA there. Anyway, lower numbers of slaves were taken from the ports of Africa, including those along the Gold Coast, the Windward Coast, and the Bight of Biafra. Many African ethnic groups were victims of the transatlantic slave trade, including the Fulani and Hausa, two groups in which your haplogroup are heavily represented, which is very true. But going forward, you can see the distribution map here. And let me even do this to make it better for you right quick. And take this off the screen. My fault. Look at me. Bop. So yes, you have Fulani that carried it in high percentage in certain places like Cameroon and other places, even as far east as Sudan, which is interesting. But you have people like the Dogon who carry it at higher percentages, like 45% in Mali and whatnot. And again, this is heaviest in Mali. You have the Jola of Guinea-Bissau who carry it as well at 34%. You have the Papel Mankanya Manjak of Guinea-Bissau also 20% to carry this. So again, my brother is completely correct. You don't have to be Fulani and whatnot, but like I have other reasons to believe so. And I'm not saying I'm not connected to these people because again, genetically, I'm definitely like me and all these other people who have this have the same paternal progenitor, etc. So I'm definitely related to these people here. I'm not saying I'm not these people. I'm not connected to these people. But going forward, the Tali community of Cameroon again carries this at 20%. You have the Hausa of Sudan that carry this at 16%, right? You have the Nile of Guinea-Bissau. Again, a lot you can find this like a lot in Guinea-Bissau, which is interesting. So yeah, like so there were a lot of slaves taken from there to the Caribbean as well. So you might have a DNA test that connects you more to Guinea-Bissau than the places where Fulani would be having this DNA. Again, the Wolof of Senegambia have this at 12%. Shout out to the Wolof. The Balanta of Guinea-Bissau. Again, a lot of this is in Guinea-Bissau. So I don't have a lot of my DNA that comes from Guinea-Bissau. So that's another reason why I'm not particularly saying I'm specifically these people, but at the same point in time, when it comes to migrations and history, like no, we have the same paternal progenitor on this one. The Sahrawi of Burkina Faso have this at 10%, right? Moving forward, yeah, I keep trying to do this one right quick. Yo, Zedek, what are you doing over in Mauritania, bro? Like, bro, how let your boy? The God people of Ghana have this at 3%, right? So, like, there's definitely a lot of people from Ghana who were taken to the Caribbean, etc. So my brother could definitely have some Ghanaian DNA, etc. Of the God people. Again, the Fonte of Ghana have this. So there's definitely a group of people in Ghana that have this. We've also find this in Egypt. Also find this in Egypt. But yeah. Yeah, family. Yeah, Gar said, I think it may be from ethnic. Yeah, it very may well be. It very well may well be, fam. But yeah, I don't see anybody trying to jump on. So what do I identify as Orthodox more? First and foremost, identify as Moorish. Because that like gives it gives a summation of a lot of stuff of what I am, right? So for instance, I could be Fulani and be a Moor. I could be a whole bunch of those West African tribes and be associated with the Moors politically, etc. Historically, I can see where the Fulani that I do come from were politically connected to the Moors. I'm also North African Jewish, which I also consider to be of Maghrebi and Moorish culture. I'm also Native American. I'm also a little Western European, like mostly Gaelic on that side. I claim all of it, every last drop of it. On paperwork, I'm Moorish. I'm either Moorish or Jewish, but I prefer Moorish because Moorish is more encompassing of all of who I am. I mean, even literally, just for like the Moors in Spain, right? Like I can literally see all my people in Spain at one time, in the sense to where, like, even on some slavery type stuff, like there were some Native Americans that were in Spain. There were my African people in Spain. There were my North African people in Spain, my North African Jewish people in Spain, etc. There were my Gaelic people in Spain and whatnot, right? So for me, all of that's encompassed in the Moorish culture. Okay, that's what's up. Shout out to the chat. You know what I'm saying? Trying to go through this right quick, see if I got any good questions in this. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to all the people in the chat. Shout out to Asiatic Lion. Shout out to Sean Harris. Shout out to Yo Better. Shout out to Garth Yehuda Andrew. Shout out to Yashar. General Yashar in the building. General Yashar. Yao Shar. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to T Turner. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Shari United. Shout out to Hebrew Israelism, even though like there's some beef popping off. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy the back and forth in the chat, fam. I like good dialogue. You know what I'm saying? I don't do censorship here. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Rama Yahoo. Shout out to Melanated Goddess every time. I always appreciate you when you come through, sis. Shout out to the homie Kimo Ben Israel. You know what I'm saying? The most modern Israelite in the game. And shout out to the good homie Anonymous Hebrew. But with that, family, I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. You know what's interesting though? I'm gonna add this one to it. On the fly, I'm gonna do this, as a matter of fact. On the fly, I'm gonna do this. So I was doing some research, and I found out that that, like I was talking about in this last video here about the Haitian slaves and the Haitian revolt, etc., and the fact that there were a lot of slaves taken from East Africa to what would be Haiti, etc. Yeah, something that I found out recently, and going through some literature from a historian from Sapelo Island, who's Gullah and whatnot, who's Geechee, who also she was in the PBS documentary The Black Church, and she got her education at Rutgers and whatnot. Hold on, let me find the slide right quick. Yeah, in her book, and I will get the title for you right quick as well. She actually breaks down the fact that at one point in time, there's some Haitian slaves that are brought to Sapelo Island when their masters are fleeing the Haitian revolt. So yeah, let me do it like this right quick, because I found this to be fascinating. Because so what I just showed you, the video I showed you is from a year ago, right? From November of 2020, a little over a year ago, right? What I'm about to show you now is something I literally just found out in this last week. Literally just found out in this last week. So if you go purchase the book Making Gullah, A History of Sapelo Islanders, Race, and the American Imagination by Melissa L. Cooper. Again, she was in the Black Church documentary with Henry Louis Gates. She was speaking in the same episode where they were speaking about the church in Savannah, and also the church in Sapelo. There's the first African Baptist church in Sapelo, built in 1865. So when they go to Sapelo Island, they talk to Melissa Cooper, because she's a historian, and she's from the island and wrote a book about the history of the island, etc. But in that book, there's a section where she specifies that Edward Swarback and those brought from Saint Domingo by their master John Montalet in the wake of the Haitian revolt in 1805. Right? Let me give a little bit more context. From the first group of Africans brought to the islands by Patrick Mackay in 1762, and those who slaved for John McQueen, to the Africans brought to the island in 1791 by the wealth-seeking partners of the French Sapelo Company. Again, that's looking at the French Sapelo Company, fam. From the hundreds of blacks enslaved by famed cotton planter Thomas Spalding, to the Africans who came to the island as property of the ship captain and slaver Edward Swarback, and those brought from Saint Domingo by their master John Montalet in the wake of the Haitian revolt in 1805. So there's more than this that make it to Georgia, obviously, right? But it's confirmed. It is literally confirmed that there is a batch of Haitian slaves that make it to Sapelo and at least Georgia. You know what I'm saying? And so it very much stands to reason that that's a direct connection right there to a potential connection to this East African concept I'm talking about in this previous video here, right? In the sense, we have 540,000 people taken from the eastern ports from Madagascar and from Mozambique, right? Again, there's a slave, right? There's a slave who was considered Jewish, etc. He can speak Hebrew and Arabic, all them kind of things, right? But he says he comes from Madagascar, right? Even Tudor Parker says like he most likely, like it seems like a far-fetched story, but no, it's actually legit. Like there's 540 slaves that came from Mozambique and Madagascar, right? I was showing pictures here of the Comorians and whatnot. When people talk about G2A DNA and whatnot, there's actually some Comorians that have G2A DNA that are in between Madagascar and Mozambique, right? That could have got caught up in the East African slave trade. So there's a lot of us, like the sister, a melanated goddess, said she doesn't have any East African DNA or Southeast African DNA, you know, and there's a lot of us who don't. But there's many of us like me, Sister Shari and Naya, Anonymous Hebrew, a lot of people, right, that have the good brother Yehukanan, right, that have East African DNA. A lot of people in the App gang got East African DNA, straight up and down. And we're not talking about like just like Southeastern Bantu type stuff. Yeah, we have that. But like, so why are people like me and Shari Knight coming up in a Yehukanan coming up with Somalian DNA and DNA from the Horn of Africa? Like that's got to get explained, fam. We're not talking about like small percentages. We're talking like anywhere from like 1.5 to like 3+%. Like that's not small, fam. When you start doing math, that lets you know how many generations back that goes, right? That's not small, fam. That kind of stuff has to get explained. Particularly now. Like, so when I was talking to Garfield, we were talking about this whole like, oh, like, yeah, if he told me like, so on a scholastic level, I can't argue with this statement. He's like, well, you would agree if the Lemba came through the slave trade, the best way we could prove that is with genetics. 100%. That's why I was pushing Dante's DNA so hard. That's why, like, again, I was the one who told Dante he was E1B1B. Everyone saw E and just assumed he was E1B1A, right? I was the one that told him he was E1B1B, and then pushed it around the community like, no, this is a big deal because this, you have to slow the conversation down now, because not only is he E1B1B, he has like a very heavily Yemenite form thereof, and he doesn't have a lot of European DNA to where like it would seem likely that he actually got this marker from them. Doesn't seem likely at all. It seems very likely he potentially could be somebody who was caught up in the East African part of the slave trade, who wound up genetically over here in the West with the rest of us. On his paternal side. At the very least on his paternal side. We also need to look at his DNA because it might prove another migration from Yemen to Central and West Africa. So no matter how you slice it, Dante's DNA is very important because, like, for people like Garfield who assumed that we were all E1B1A, people like me, people like him, people like Yehukanan, people like my good brother Anonymous, and I'll play that video on another day where Anonymous is breaking down the fact that he's EM180, and Garfield was like, nah, you can't be, and he had to show like, no, I like, why am I not? He broke down the 23andMe and showed like, no, it says I'm EM180, fam. We're not all landlocked to West Africa. And in the American South, we got to recognize that there was a lot of mixing that went on, right? A lot of mixing that went on. In isolated pockets as well. So like again, some people will have certain DNA, certain people won't. Either or, the East African DNA has to get explained, and the only way it can get explained, one is through migration from east to west, but also the fact that there's directly 540,000 plus slaves taken from the East African slave ports and that came to the West in the transatlantic slave trade. Many went to Haiti, many went to Brazil. Some were directly taken to like South Carolina, etc. To Charleston, made it to the ports of Charleston, etc. Some were directly taken to Charleston. And from Charleston, you already know what it is, right? So you're going to North Carolina, you're going to Maryland, you're going to Virginia, you're going to South Carolina. You're going, yes, South Carolina, obviously, but like Georgia, etc. From the Charleston ports. So that becomes very significant, fam. Very significant. So yeah, Garfield, I would agree. If people are claiming to be Lemba, it's going to have to prove out via the DNA. And not just the paternal DNA. We really need to look into what the mitochondrial DNA of the Lemba and what that is, right? Because, for instance, the men have 13 different haplotypes. 13. Three different E haplogroups. EM40, EM35, and at some point EM2. So we really got to hash that one out, because the mitochondrial DNA is super important. I keep trying to tell people, like, on a biblical level, there's the seed of the male and the seed of the female, right? And so we'll be able to isolate certain populations based upon those two different seeds and who has the mixings of what. But yeah, the DNA is going to slow things down quite a bit. And again, a lot of people aren't focusing on the East African side of the slave trade and how important it is to our, like, we're not taught about it in school. We don't think about it in terms of, we really don't think about it in terms of the Israelite concept, right? And again, this is why when I started talking about the pews in the church in Savannah, Georgia, why me and Anonymous were like, we need to slow this all the way down, because that church is a potential repository of all these different migrations of the slave trade in one spot, including the East African side of it. Matter of fact, hold on. Let me do this right quick, because this is something that doesn't come out in the story about the pews quite a bit, right? I'm going to give a sneak peek on some stuff right quick. I'm going to give a sneak peek on some stuff right quick, because I'm about to come out. I'm about to do this one a little bit later this week. But so check this out, right? So these are pictures of the stained glass window at windows at the First African Baptist Church in Savannah, right? So a lot of people are hearing about like Ephraim Isaac talking about there being potential Ge'ez on the pews or whatnot, which is very, 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 very interesting and important. People need to go. That needs to get slowed down and looked at as well, right? But when Anonymous was on tour on August 3rd of 2019, as you can see in the timestamps in the cell phone pictures on the left, right? When he's there, he's being told, like, there's an Ethiopic aspect to the crosses on the windows. And what's most interesting about that is he's told that there is an evolution of the crosses. They start off Ethiopic. They start off as Ethiopian crosses, and eventually, as the church gets more and more modern, they become more modern in their motif, more contemporary. So they go from being Ethiopian crosses to Western Christian crosses. So even Abu had to recognize, oh wow, like that kind of gives some kind of like some credence a little bit. Like there's you can't sneeze at the fact that people talking about there's potentially Ge'ez on the pews, right? Because there's a potential Ethiopic aspect to the church. And looking at the genetics now, there is an East African aspect of the slave trade that's playing out in our genetics. So this Ethiopic aspect of the church and potential connection was something I was focused on heavy. And you will see going forward that I was pushing for this Ethiopic concept to be pushed, and this East African side of the slave trade concept to be pushed behind closed doors. But since before the PBS documentary was released, etc. But yeah, I'm gonna enjoy getting into this part of it because like this part's very near and dear to my heart. This like I wish we could have been talking about this for the past year versus the concept of is there Arabic, is there not Arabic on the pews? Is there Hebrew, is there Arabic? Like the false dichotomy of either or Hebrew or Arabic, and not talking about the trade language aspect of the church has been unfortunate. So going forward, I'm going to focus on the trade language aspect of the church, but also this part here, the Ethiopic aspect of this thing, because it's like, again, it forces a paradigm shift to where we have to focus on the East African side of the slave trade and how it interplays. It forces us to broaden the scope on this thing, get a full understanding. But yeah, I'm not going to get too much more into it right now. Yeah, sis, fantastic question. What is the mtDNA of the Lemba? First of all, they're not going to have just one, but they're definitely some L, and it's going to be intriguing to see what other forms of DNA they have, right? Like, so for instance, like we're going to see African American women that aren't just L as well. Like we'll see some that are L0, L1, L2, L3. But we're going to see some that are U6, U5. We'll see some that are M, etc. We'll see some that are H, right? Because we find those also in North Africa, right? There's some women in my chat that got that, right? That are darker than midnight, you know what I'm saying? But they have North African mitochondrial DNA because that's part of the whole mix and whatnot. So with where the Lemba women are at, particularly like in East Africa and whatnot, you're going to see a blend of what you would find in Arabia, in East Africa, and even some parts of India and whatnot, like connected to Oman and like Sri Lanka and all kind of things. You know what I'm saying? Because of the trade that happened in East Africa. Yeah, Asiatic knows what time it is. Knows exactly what time it is. Facts. Good thing my DNA Basic series starts today. We need it. Yes, we do, sis. And please go check out the sister's page. Please go like, share, and subscribe. She is putting out a lot of good information and it's starting off at square one on a lot of topics. And it's so needed in this day and time because a lot of people want to start at the end or start at the middle. And I like to tell people, like, you got to use the Mad Hatter approach. You know what I'm saying? Start at the beginning. And once you get to the end, stop. You know what I'm saying? Start at the beginning. And when you get to the end, stop. But no, shout out to the sister and her labors in the field right now because she's definitely bringing it back to where it needs to be. Yeah, my G said my mom was L3 E2B. Yeah, my grandmother was L2, right? And what's interesting about her lineage is that it's very much connected to a lot of Jews and whatnot. So we're finding that in GEDmatch that we're getting a heavy connection on my father's side. My mother's side also connects to Ethiopian Jews and whatever, showing an east to west migration going into North Africa and Spain and whatnot. But with my father's people, again, seeing it like a mainly like a genetic link with like the Fulani and the Yoruba, etc. Right? Both of which have like an east to west migration pattern and whatnot. We're seeing that my grandmother's L2 whatever is heavily connecting people with the Ethiopian DNA, Ethiopian Jewish DNA. Like so, my mother's average is like in the 59s, 57s or whatnot in every one of the projects or whatnot, including Ethio-Helix. Again, my mother comes up. She's phenotypically North African Mediterranean, but comes up Ethio-Helix or Ethiopian Jewish at an average of 57 to 59 in the Ethio-Helix projects. Ethio-Helix projects, right? I come up at an average in 44, like the low 40s in all the different projects that have Ethiopian Jewish in, right? Now that means I'm coming in lower than my mother, right? So the only way for me to get that number in comparison to my mother is my father to be in the high 20s, right? Like 28 roughly on average. And so, yeah. I got that confirmed with my second cousin on my father's side, who has the same mitochondrial DNA as my grandmother, right? She's coming up with the same distances that I'm coming up with, right? Except she's just getting, again, her father is Western European. And so, again, her African link is through her mitochondrial side to my grandmother and whatnot, right? And so, again, I'm closer to my grandmother than she is by one generation. But she's getting the same, my second cousin is getting the same distance as I am, showing that mitochondrial DNA has a strong link to the Ethiopian Jewish concept. Very strongly. But yeah, man. And all DNA does really is, for people listening, it helps us find out the migration patterns, right? So let's say we could take a test tomorrow that could 100% prove that we're Israelites, right? Cool, got you. What do you do then? It's just a starting point, right? But it's a fascinating starting point, and it's a story that needs to be told, right? Like, so there's 2 points, there's 2 sides to this thing. One, finding out who we are, and then 2, finding out our responsibility, right? A lot of people are asking, like, so why do you even care about DNA? Why would you even look? Well, my man Anonymous talks about this all day. Shout out to Anonymous Hebrew, right? I'm gonna start calling him the epigenetic Israelite, you know what I'm saying? Because he breaks down this concept, like, he talks about epigenetics a lot. And he has a degree in psychology, whatever, and other things, and he speaks to this quite a bit, and we agree on this 100%. Like, for instance, he and I have different paternal DNAs, right? Our father's lineages have 2 different origins and whatnot, right? Ultimately, they link up somewhere because they're both E, but they're vastly different E's. Again, he's EM180, I'm EM33, EM132, right? And so my personal mitochondrial DNA is A2G. It's a Native American mitochondrial DNA, right? However, autosomally, right, he and I overlap on a lot of levels, right? And we overlap in areas to where the Israelite migrations go through, right? Like particularly like in Kenya, Ethiopia, right? We have a particular set of overlapping there, and a particular overlapping in like Mali, in West Africa, etc., right? And that, which is on, like, which you can see is on a linear kind of a trade route over time, right? And what's interesting about that is the way I'll speak for me right now. The way I look at it is this: with the autosomal DNA, right? If you don't connect paternally, like right now, we don't know the specific paternal line of Jacob. We don't know the specific maternal line of Sarah, for instance, right? So we don't know the paternal line of Abraham, don't know the paternal line of Sarah, right? We can speculate, right? However, on this autosomal concept, right, where a lot of people are finding overlaps with different Jewish populations in the world and whatnot, at the very least, you can consider yourself like a relative or a descendant of somebody who may have sojourned with the nation, right? And so much so that there's a sharing of DNA. You know what I'm saying? So you can have multiple different haplogroups and be an autosomal Israelite, right? And have a genetic overlap, right? And what Anonymous talks about, and what I agree with, is this concept of, on an epigenetic level, you're remembering who you are or where you're coming from and whatnot, right? Like, so for some of us, like Melanated God, she's saying she doesn't have any East African DNA, right? But there's some of us that do. Like Shari Anaya has 3% Somalian DNA, right? The homie Yehukana got 3% Somalian DNA, right? I got 1.5% DNA that comes from the horn myself, right? And a lot of us got a lot of Kenyan DNA at high percentages, like at high percentages. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us are seeing Southeastern Bantu at above 10% easy. Some of, like, a lot of us, like in North America, we're seeing it like at above like 10, 15, 19%, right? Like in Haiti, fam, it could be like 30, 40%, 50%. So we really need to look into that, right? We really need to understand that, and understand on an epigenetic level. It's like when the Bible talks about like the blood crying out from the ground, right? Well, our DNA and our blood are the same thing, right? In concept, right? So in the sense that the life is in the blood, right? The life is in the DNA. There's a part of our DNA that can call out for stuff, right? And then for some of us, there is a yearning to remember these things. Not all of us, but some of us. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why some of us are drawn to places like the First African Baptist Church. Looking at the Bakongo symbol on the ground and be like, wow, feeling a connection to that. Seeing Ethiopic crosses, feeling a connection to that. Seeing Arabic on some of the pews, not all of them, some of the pews, and seeing a connection to some of that. Seeing Hebrew on some of the pews, not all of the pews, but some of the pews, and seeing a connection to that. Etc. Seeing Ez on some of the pews, not all of the pews, but seeing a connection to that. There's some of us whose DNA is going to call out for this memory. It just is what it is. And it's going to be a big family that has that calling, that has that DNA calling out. It's not going to be everybody, but it's going to be a group of people. And as a diaspora, as a full diaspora, something we need to do for each other is give each other the space to recognize that, you know what, our DNA is going to call out to us different things. Some of us are going to, some of us are like, yeah, like my man said, I'm not Fulani, I don't connect to that, right? I do, but he doesn't. And we should be able to respect that about each other, right? Because he might not be Fulani. That might not be the culture that sings out there. Like he might be feeling like the Fonte coming out, right? Or the God people in Ghana coming out. He might be hearing those voices coming out in his DNA. I can't knock that, fam. At all. At all. But I also shouldn't be knocked if I'm hearing the Fulani, if I'm feeling the Fulani, if I'm feeling the East African, if I'm feeling etc., right? Because it's there. And what's crazy is there's people who are feeling that calling, who are coming together and talking about the same thing out of nowhere. Like we don't know each other from Adam, but we find we got similar experiences, we got similar concepts, similar ways of doing things and whatnot, right? That are different than other people. And we find out when we work together, we get more done than when we work with other groups of people. There's something to that, fam. There's something to that. Epigenetics plays a huge role in this, right? A huge role in this. And we can just keep it on a real simple level, like the psychological and spiritual side of the genetics, right? That's something we also got to factor in as well. And it's not a fluke. People talking about they feel this in their spirit, or whatever. That's not a fluke, fam. Can you scientifically explain that? Maybe not directly, but epigenetics gives you a really good starting point to understand the concept. Like, oh yeah, I can put some words to that there. Okay, that makes sense on this. That makes sense to that. You know what I'm saying? There's some people who won't connect to being like an Israelite. They might say, okay, I want to be a Muslim, etc. All right, they might connect themselves again, like so with EM132, right? More than half the people on that list that I mentioned, right, from the Wolof to the Mandinka to the Fulani, like they're Muslim, right? More than half of them are not. Like somebody might connect to the Dogon side. I'm like, you know what? Let me do the Dogon thing. I can't knock that, fam. I can't knock that, fam. On the diaspora level, I'm gonna support you and you waking up to who you are, right? Just don't knock me to waking up to who I am. Just don't knock me to waking up to who I am, right? But with that, family, my man said I'm Yoruba. Hey, so am I. So am I. And that's what I'm saying. Wait a second, I don't see a lot of Nigerian and Yoruba, some Bantu and Lemba. But I would say I'm Yoruba. Yeah. No, I'm with it. Like, so I completely agree. Like my father, right? Like my grandmother, I believe has a heavy Yoruba connection, right? Like you can see in my tree ancestry, in my tree ancestry videos, that I connect to being Moorish and Yoruba, top two on everyone, right? My second cousin I was talking about, who has the same mitochondrial DNA as my grandmother, she ended up marrying a Yoruba man, a full on Yoruba man, right? And what was interesting is that when she married into the family and whatnot, she got to see some of his uncles and whatnot. She's like, oh, wow, you look like my Uncle Remus, my father, right? It's true. I met a lot of people from West Africa too, where like my dad looks like a lot of people from like the Cameroon area, southern Nigeria, etc. Yeah, I see a lot of people from that area that and a lot of Europe that look like my father and my grandmother and other people in my family. But I also see Fulani people that look like people in my family as well. Like a lot of people in my family have that Fulani reddish yellow skin, right? A lot of people thought my family was really mixed. But it turned out like they came back like 94 on my father's side, 94% African, right? But a lot of them have, like, my father's dark, right? But his sisters, for instance, right? Like there was actually a beef in the family at one point in time because like some of the brothers and sisters came out lighter than him and his older sister, right? But when you looked at the family in a broad swath, a lot of people came out like that, just because a lot of them have had that Fulani DNA to where like they have that reddish, ruddyish, yellowish skin. That's very common. And again, like very common in places like Cameroon. Very common. But Jeff, I appreciate y'all sticking with me for this long. I have some things I need to get into for the day. We will definitely keep this conversation going, fam. Definitely. But I appreciate y'all for showing up. Appreciate you for your comments. I appreciate your participation. I hope there was some edification in this. But yes, there will be like this year. I will be focusing a lot more on the trade language aspect of the church and the pews. Because that really needs to be understood and the implications thereof. And continuing to hone in on this concept of the East African slave trade. Because and again, shout out to Cohen Hamadisha. I know he's going through a lot right now with recovering from cancer surgery, etc., whatnot. So like I gave the details where you could donate at the beginning of the video. If it's available to you to do so, please go donate to the brother, man. He came through and laced us as a community with some beautiful information. And definitely, again, he led me in the direction of this research by saying, he was like, no, he let me know on this channel that there were Lemba taken on slave ships that made it to the Americas. When he told me that, I was like, okay, I'm now bound to go find this out, go figure this out for the elder right quick. And it's a super plausible thing, fam. It's a super plausible thing. And we may even potentially see signs of it in the First African Baptist Church. So with that, family, like I said, I appreciate you for coming through. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. And with that, I say peace and love.
I like the way this feel, yeah. Let my soul cry, yeah. Minister, we gonna speak from the heart on this one. I'm performing lyrical funerals, no obituary. I killed your boy and brought him back to life. Pet cemetery. My anointing not based on attendance at a seminary. Scarlet witches, they attracted to the visionary. Everywhere I go, I bring the word with me, missionary. Soldier drafted in the war machine, military. Pay attention, what I'm saying to you, legendary. You got the demeanor of a front desk secretary. That mean you take the calls, but you don't make the calls. That's why you hate, cause ain't nothing fake about me at all. Now I dare you try to say that with a straight face. My delivery in tip-top, great shape. I'm too advanced for you, light years, space age. No evolution for you cavemen, stone age. I'm a thoroughbred, rock solid. I came from the bottom to the top, rock climbing. I grew up in the hood, pros and cons. That's that full court pressure when the ambulance roll out the stretch. Why can't you see it's not logical? If you live diabolical, boy, your point of view smaller than the hair follicle molecule. This for all of them that follow you, smoking all of them barbecue. When I pull up, your voice on correct itself with no auto-tune. I got a whole nother level that I can enter whenever I gotta deal with the devil. I pick a whole nother method. I hear a whole lot of yapping. They wanna see my reaction. I'm really out here in the community making it happen. I don't really think they understand the dilemma. They ain't looking at the man in the mirror. I can't say it in the clearer. The plan is very simple. It's time to start playing in the temple. Before somebody come and put the can on your temple. Reaching like a baby with his hand for the nipple. The Grand Reaper coming with his hand on the circle. Hit the van coming with a ram with it. With the van coming get him. I am so glad that I changed up. Made it out of where I came from. Watch for the sliding hook of the slow ball, fastball, and that change up. That ghetto lifestyle, it changed us. Go back to visit, it ain't changed much. Only difference is now the way that my brain process information. And Satan, but after my license, day one, let me say something. Only reason that I'm still alive today because God's grace is amazing. Just another raisin in the sun. Dream deferred when things occurred. Now you getting served right on the curb like a lemonade stand. I just gave you the benediction, let the whole church say amen.